like to call this meeting of Akron City Council to order this day, September the 25th, 2017. We will have a prayer by Kay Gauder. I don't know if I said that correctly. Did I pronounce you?
I'm representing Kay. My name is Janet Paul.
Hi, Janet. Thank you so much for being here with us. Those of you that would care to join us, you may stand and join us. After Kay gives us her words, we will then turn to the flag and do the pledge. Kay, please go ahead.
Dear Lord, it is an honor to lift up this evening to you Rich Swirsky, Bruce Kilby, Margot Somerville, Russell Neal Jr., Tara Mosley Samples, Bob Hoke, Donnie Kamer, Marilyn Keith, Mike Freeman, Zach Milokovic, Jeff Fusco, Linda Amobian, Veronica Sims, Bob Keith, and Mayor Don Horrigan. Lord, I thank you for each of them, specifically their willingness to serve the people of the city of Akron. I pray that their hearts will be inclined towards you, O God, that they will seek you first for their wisdom and counsel as they fulfill the roles that you have given each of them. Help them to continue to rise up as honorable and moral leaders of the people of the wards they represent in this city. Mostly, Lord, I pray that you will unify this diverse group of people, even through conflict, for the best of the people that they serve. Please give each a heartfelt desire to understand each other more than they want to be understood. Let civility, respect, and love rule in their hearts and this time. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
The clerk will read the roll call.
Roll call. Freeman, Fusco, Hoke, Kamer, Keith, Kilby, Milkovich, Mosley Samples, Neal, Amobian, Sims, Somerville, Swirsky.
And now the clerk will read the minutes from the previous meeting.
Minutes from the meeting on September 18, 2017. Council convened in regular session at 7 p.m. with President Keith in the chair. All members were present. Minutes of the previous regular meeting read and approved. Reading of petitions and communications. Passage of the consent agenda. Report of standing and special committees. Passage and renewal of new ordinances and resolutions. Representation from various departments and divisions, public speaking period. No further business on a motion by Fusco. Council adjourned at 9:52 p.m. to reconvene in regular session on September 25th, 2017, or special call.
Thank you. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Seeing none, is there a motion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Councilman Neal abstains.
One second. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, letters, petitions, and communications.
Brief description of the 2017 Continuum of Care application from Jason Segedy, Director of Planning.
File.
Report of the Assessment Equalization Board for Resolution Number 253, 2017.
File.
Summary of the income tax receipts through the end of August 2017.
File.
Notice of stock of D5, D6 liquor permit to Jamar Corporation doing as Guy's Restaurant and Party Center, 500 East Waterloo Road.
Attention Ward 7, Councilman Kane. Now we will move to the consent agenda. All in favor? Any against? Hearing and seeing none, the consent agenda passes. And we're going to vote on it. All in favor? I already did it. I already did. All in favor.
Okay.
Do you want to do a roll call?
Roll call and final passage. Freeman, Fusco, Hope, Kamer, Keith, Kilby, Milkovich, Mosley Samples, Neal, Amobian, Sims, Somerville, Swirsky.
Thank you. We will now go to our regular agenda, and where the first committee is rules. Councilwoman Margot Somerville, what are the wishes of your committee?
Thank you, Madam President. The committee requests time.
Okay, and time will be granted. Budget and Finance. Councilman Freeman, what are the wishes of, I apologize. I believe Councilwoman Margot Somerville, you took this committee today, so what are the wishes of your committee?
Thank you, Madam President. On item number 1, the committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
The committee has a favorable report with suspension of the rules. We will now vote as council as a whole on suspension of the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, Councilwoman Somerville, would you like to tell us a little bit more about why you have come to this decision?
Yes, Madam President. It's pretty self-explanatory. This is just our annual appropriation.
Okay. All in favor of this annual appropriation signify by saying aye. Aye. Any against? Nay. Seeing none and hearing none, roll call.
Roll call and final passage. Freeman, Fusco, Hope, Kamer, Keith, Kilby, Milkovich, Mosley Samples, Neal, Amobian, Sims, Somerville, Swirsky.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Councilwoman Somerville, on number 2, what are the wishes of your committee?
Committee requests consent agenda.
And this item shall be placed on the consent agenda. We now come to Planning Committee, and in the Planning Committee this evening we have 2 public hearings. Okay.
What are you doing?
Okay. We're going to take just a moment. We have people out in the hall that are here to speak at the public hearing. We cannot actually have more people come into the chambers right now, and yet they need to be sworn in and heard. So they're working on a plan here, and we'll move forward when I get the okay.
He's acting like it ain't his. It's Gregory Harris.
Sounds good. Someone can sit right over here. Someone can sit right here, which I would love. I did say that already. Leave it on. Yeah, I think so. No, leave it on. Do you want me to ask him to come in? Testing, 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 testing. I do know another word. Okay, it's perfect. Thank you, Councilman Milkovich, for getting that. If anyone out in the hall is able to come in, we do have some seats still open. So I'm under the understanding that this is, before we begin, these are the people that will be sitting up front here. I thought we were at capacity. Okay, we're ready. We're all set to go. All of you that are here to testify at one of the public hearings, we have 2 of them this evening. If you are going to speak, I would like you now to stand. Anyone that is here to speak, please stand so that you are sworn in by the law department. Go right ahead. Okay. So anyone who isn't standing isn't speaking. Okay, Okay, thank you. At the public hearing. Okay.
Okay, if you would, please raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give tonight is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If you do, say, I do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, the clerk will now read in our first public hearing.
Our first public hearing, legal notice. Notice hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the Council of the City of Akron on Monday, September 25th, 2017, during the regular council meeting at 7 p.m. in council chambers 166 South High Street upon an ordinance authorizing a conditional use to establish a commercial use at 982 Oakland Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Antonucci.
Thank you, Madam President, members of council. Triple D Ice Cream is proposing to establish the storage of ice cream products and the parking of commercial vehicles at the single-family residence. The petitioner currently operates a business that uses commercial vehicles which drive around the Akron area selling ice cream. Commercial-grade freezers located in a detached garage. The petitioner often receives shipments of ice cream at the residence. Numerous ice cream trucks are parked in the driveway and sometimes on the street. Employees park their personal vehicles on the street and drive off in the trucks to sell ice cream around town. One goal of the Land Use and Development Guide Plan is to preserve and protect residential neighborhoods. Planning staff has received numerous complaints about the business. The daily activity of the business causes traffic congestion and noise and is disruptive to the neighboring properties. Ample commercially zoned property exists in Akron that is more suitable for this type of activity, and both Planning Commission and Planning staff recommend disapproval.
Thank you, Mr. Antonucci. Is there anyone in the audience that's been sworn in that would like to speak in favor of this ordinance? Anyone to speak in favor? If you would, one at a time, go up to the podium, sign in with your first name and last name, and then write your address down. You do not have to say your address to us, but you need to have your name, first name, last name, and your address on that sheet there. And then, perfect, thank you so much. So if you would like to introduce yourself, telling us your first name, spelling your last name.
My name is Russell L. Darcy.
Okay. And if you want to go ahead and tell us why you're in favor of this ordinance.
Okay, well, this is my property here, and the reason why I'm in favor of it is, the main reason is when the three-phase line was dropped down to my garage, it was done so by the county. And I let them know then it was the purpose of a freezer to store ice cream in. And we had to pull permits from the county and from the city. I had to have licensed electrician to do the hookup, and I used a licensed certified contractor, Hanks Refrigeration, to install it. And the reason I thought that I was in a residential commercial zone was because several houses down from me used to be a chiropractor's office. And I've done brickwork for him, but he's since moved to Silver Lake. Behind my garage, where the freezer is, there's an office building, a doctor's office, less than 100 feet away. There's another commercial building straight in back of my house, separated by maybe a 30-foot yard, another commercial building. And to the left, less than 100 feet, is a automotive shop. So I was in the middle of all this here, and when the inspector from the Ohio Edison came and okayed to drop the three-phase line down, I thought everything was all right. I spent $20,000 for this. And I didn't put this in here to get rich. You know, I employed a lot of I really don't employ them, they're self-employed. But I have the trucks and I let them drive it and I give them 40% of what they make. My grandkids, they make summer money for school. My granddaughter here, she's a cheerleader and she has to pay for certain things for cheerleading. I've went out with polices and given away ice cream to, low-income housing developments. I've served ice cream for the mayor's night out down on North Street last year. And I go to Haven Arrest, YMCA, everybody benefit from it. And if this conditional use is not granted, a lot of people is going to suffer from it. For instance, Jason Bailey's Automotive, which gets a lot of work from me. Firestone, that gets work from me. Selby's Refrigeration, Hank's Refrigeration, all these businesses, Yummy Treats, Specialty, Ice Cream Specialty, Austin Town Dairy, all these companies, the money that they was getting from me, which is helping the economy, we're going to lose. I went out, gave for charter schools and a lot of, people that's economically unable to, buy ice cream. I went places giving it to them. The main reason for this here company is my son over there. He was involved in an accident 4 years ago. He went through a guardrail and went 200 feet down into a ravine. He was down there for 4 hours unconscious and froze to death. They wrapped him up in this stuff. He was on life support in ICU at Akron City Hospital for several days. He sustained permanent nerve damage, and there's no work he can do. He's too young to be getting disability, and plus he don't want that. He has 4 children and a wife that he have to support. With this here, it might take 2 or 3 hours of day out of him, and he get a chance to sit down when he want to, because this is his business. He can sit down, get back up and finish working, and then in the evenings, he stopped the trucks with the help of my grandson, who is in here right now. And this is not, all I'm asking for is for the city to grant me this conditional usage for 1 more year, which would consist of nothing but 7 months. That will be from April to October. That will give me a chance to build a facility on some property I have down on Wellington Avenue. And then I would be able to move the freezer and move the trucks down there. Right now, I heard that the guy say trucks are parked on the streets. They're not parked on the streets. Sometimes some of the drivers take the trucks home. So it might be 2 trucks, sometimes 3 parked in my driveway. When the driver that takes the truck home is not driving the next day, they will park it in my driveway so that another driver can take it out. So $20,000 is a lot of money. It might not seem like much to some of the people here, but it's a lot of money, and I don't have that kind of money to start up in April. If I can get usage of my facilities for just 1 more year, which is 6 to 7 months, then I will be good with that. Right now, it's no noise. The trucks drive up, we load them up, park them. The ones that's taking them home, they take them home. Once a week, I have a delivery, sometimes twice a week. I have a delivery come in from Austintown Dairy and Ice Cream Specialty. Ice Cream Specialty, he doesn't park on the streets. He pulls up into my driveway because he has a small box truck. Austintown Dairy, his truck is a little bigger, so he has to park on the street. And but within a half an hour, he's unloaded and he's gone. And this is a half an hour once a week. So I'm just asking the council to emphasize with me and give me and my family a chance to survive and live without having to, take other, because he don't want to go down to the welfare office and get food stamps. He don't want to live off of public assistance. He want to make his own way. And this is all I'm trying to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this ordinance? Please come up. I'm sorry. The decorum of these chambers are that we don't applaud. I apologize. I probably should have said that earlier, but there'll be no applauding and no sanction of whatever is being said up here. Just acknowledgement with your eyes is terrific, but it's okay.
Good evening. My name is Randy Dawsey, and all I've been hearing is a whole lot of talk about the parking issues. Never once have I got a call from anybody addressing the parking. And ever since we've heard of any other parking, I've had all drivers leave their keys with me. So if their vehicles need to be moved at any time, they can be moved. I've made sure that nobody parks in the designated areas where nobody is supposed to park. And it takes less than probably maybe a half hour to 45 minutes maybe at night to get the trucks all stocked, loaded, and I do it very quietly. And so if there's ever a problem, I have a company number, I have a personal number, anything can always be alleviated, but nobody's done that. So I never really saw what the big problem was, but if there was a problem, I could have addressed it myself. So if there's ever a problem, there's the number on the truck, all y'all have to do is call, and all problems will be addressed immediately. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Hey, Jason, did you sign in?
I'm Randy.
Oh, Randy, I apologize.
Yeah.
Did you sign? Okay, thank you so much. And thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else? Please go right ahead.
Hi, my name is Terry Sanders. I am Russell's sister-in-law. Well, I had came back from North Carolina. I had a job. I stayed with him for a year. And I didn't know, I have a small car. I didn't know it was going to be so much a trouble by me parking on the street. Like he said, nobody said nothing. Russell is very nice to the neighbors and to the community. So I moved since, not because I had to, because I was trying to relieve the parking situation. And I'm a little nervous.
It's okay.
But I just want to thank you for letting me say this. And y'all have a nice day.
Thank you so much. I'm going to come over here and then I'll take you.
Hi, my name is April Smith, and I'm Russell Dawsey's first cousin. I've drove the ice cream trucks. I've never noticed a problem. There's no trash left on the street. There's no loud music. There's no noise, no loud talking, shouting, or anything. And I see the neighbors when I put park, and I say hi, they say hi. They never say that don't park in front of my house or this. So I don't understand. And he does help the community a lot, and he helps supply my income because I am disabled. So there's not much that I can do without causing physical harm to myself. So I drive the truck part-time, PRN, when you need somebody to fill in, and it really helps me a lot because of my income, there's not much help I can get because they say that it's too much, but it's really not enough to live on. But that supplements me, so it helps a lot. He does help children. I mean, little kids, you know, they want ice cream. Parents can't afford it. So it's a boon for the kids. They love to see the ice cream trucks. And I think asking for a year to get it together, to move them somewhere else so that don't bother the neighbors and they won't have a reason to complain, would not be too much to ask. So I think temporary use of their property for commercial, for the business would be, it would help a lot, and it would not disenfranchise those that it does help, because he helps a lot of people. And I think that that's worth giving him a chance to move it. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. I think you're next. Did you already sign in? If you could do that, you already did? Perfect, thank you.
Hi, my name is Ashley Smith. I'm Russell Dawsey's granddaughter, as he said before. I'm only 16 years old, but like he told you guys, I always help with ice cream trucks. You know, I help stock them. Sometimes I get on the trucks, and it helps me. Like, all my school clothes I bought this year, I bought for myself, and I wouldn't have been able to do that without the help of the ice cream trucks. I feel like it wasn't really, nobody ever said anything about, you know, it's a problem or anything like that. So I don't really, you know, I don't really know. But I also feel like if you don't grant permission for whatever he needs the permission for, you're taking away from the ice cream business. Think of it from a kid's perspective. I'm a kid. I still like getting I still like getting ice cream from an ice cream truck. So, like, if you're taking that away, everybody loves the ice cream man. You don't want to take away the ice cream man, you know? So I feel like this is important. And it's important to me because without it, my father and my grandfather, my whole family would really suffer, because it's beneficial to all of us financially. And I lost my train of thought. I don't remember what I was saying. So that's all I have to say, because I don't remember now.
Thank you very much, Ms. Smith. Please, sir, go ahead and take the podium.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Jia Muhammad, and first of all, I'd like to say thank you for letting me speak. And the first thing I'd like to speak on is Russell Dawsey owns Triple D Ice Cream. It's my uncle. And together we've been selling ice cream for probably 14 years before he bought his own company. I got my company. And we service a lot of communities. And if Triple D is not permitted to be in Akron next summer, not only will a lot of employees suffer, about 15 people will be out of jobs. Me, myself, I employ youth. A lot of children will be out of jobs. And then the communities that's used to seeing these trucks, they won't have a truck. Like Cuyahoga Falls, Barberton, Akron, Canton, and all the little surrounding communities, they've seen us for years. They know us, they trust us. And it gives those kids something to look forward to. And it employs a lot of people. So not letting us operate for another 7 months would be detrimental. I mean, some of us probably could lose our homes behind this. So I'd like you guys to take that into consideration, and thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else, sir?
Yes, name is Charles Edwards, and I work for Triple D Ice Cream. I've been there for a couple of years. Since I've been there, I haven't seen problems where people knock on the door and say, hey, move your truck, move your car, and all this kind of stuff. We do all we can to try to keep the street clean at all times, as far as our own vehicles. We have 5 trucks. 2 trucks is at my house every day. I don't have a problem at my house. They come and get their truck. They leave their car, and I make sure they park where there's going to be enough room for 2 cars to park there. So my neighbors don't, say, oh, no, don't park there, or there's not enough room. I make sure this is, if 2 cars can park there, if they come to pick their van up or their truck, I make sure there's enough room for where 2 cars can get there at all times. I don't, let one park there and say, oh, So we try to keep both streets clean, So like I said, no one had been knocking at doors and said, So the biggest thing here, I think, is the parking issue is number 1, and then number 2 is zoning. I used to do home repair and stuff like that. I know you cannot drop a 3-phase line down to a garage or anything without city, okaying all this stuff, because you got to get contracts for this, that, and the other. I can't do that kind of work anymore, but I know, you got to have that. I got a main arteries tour right now, so I can't do that kind of work anymore. So we'll be working with Russell on trucks and stuff like that. I can't do that. But there's a lot of things I can't do anymore. But without the truck or without doing ice cream, there's not much I can do anymore myself. So with Mr. Dawsey's help, I'm able to get around and try to do a little something. So he's asking for another 7 months at least to try to get the other building built. And no doubt he's working on that now, trying to get that before the 7 months, if it's possible. But if you put us out right now, there's no way we can get it together before, everything will be closed down before you. So we just need that extra time if we can get that. So the parking and the use of the garage is the 2 big issues right now, and if we can get around that, we'll be fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Please.
Hello. My name is Roberta Edwards. And I haven't been working with them, I just started working with them this year. But as my son said, he's been working with them for a while. And it's a lot of kids that as soon as they see the ice cream truck, they run out. And they're so happy to see them. And I've had people to say, oh, we got an ice cream truck coming down here now. They haven't been here in over a year or 2, And for him to have to stop his company now, it's going to hurt a lot of kids, the community, and he is doing the best he can to get this other building together in order to be able to move his company. But he didn't know that it was causing all these problems. Excuse me. I'm sorry, but I get so emotional when I know it's going to hurt other kids and people. They can't afford to do things. And it will stop us from being able to work and have the money to do what we had to do when we're unable to work a regular job. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Edwards. Is there anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone else to speak in favor? Is there anyone else anyone in the room to speak against this ordinance? Anyone in the room to speak? And you were sworn in? Okay, good.
My name is Robin Moore, and I would like to thank you for taking your time today to listen to us. I would like to ask that you respectfully decline the request for commercial use. And I do want to clarify, I am not in favor of anybody losing their jobs. That's not what I'm here for. I want y'all to keep your jobs. But what we're not focused on is the street is not equipped for commercial use. It's not a commercial area. It's too much traffic, too much heavy equipment on that street, and it is causing problems with the neighbors, myself and others. I mean, sometimes I can't get out my driveway because he has his trucks on the street, not his ice cream trucks, the delivery trucks, which were just on the street about a week and a half ago, and I took pictures. So I'm coming out my driveway, and I can't get out because the trucks are right there at the end of my driveway. So I have to wait. I work 2 jobs. So it's not about people losing their jobs. I want the kids to still get ice cream. I love ice cream. But the street is not equipped. It is not a commercial area. It's not. We are not that far from Cuyahoga Falls Avenue. And if anybody knows Cuyahoga Falls Avenue, there's a lot of storefronts there. Space for rent, and Mr. Dossie can use that. Council offered to help him find rental space to accommodate his business for the 7 months. If there's anything I can do to help him, I would be more than happy to. But I don't think that the neighbors should be inconvenienced by his trucks and by them stopping us from being able to get into our driveways, the parking situation, and just all of the traffic on that street.
Thank you, Ms. Moore.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience to speak against this ordinance? Anyone else to speak against? Seeing none, we will close the public comment period for this particular ordinance, and Councilman Fusco will now address us.
Yes, thank you, President Keith. I'd like to poll the committee for time to refer the item for further discussion later. Ms. Mobian? Kamer? Neal? Swirsky?
Aye.
Okay. The committee has asked for time, and time will be granted. So no decision has been made. We're going to reflect longer on it in committee, and then a decision will come out of committee. So those of you that were here to speak on this ordinance, if you do not mind leaving the chambers now so we can bring in another group, and I want to thank all of you for coming down. We will now go to our second public hearing for the evening, and the clerk will read that in.
This is a substitute legal notice. Notice hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the council of the City of Akron on Monday, September 25th, 2017, during a regular council meeting at 7 p.m. in council chambers, 166 South High Street, upon an ordinance authorizing conditional use to construct a garage at 554 Weber Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Antonucci.
Thank you, Madam President, members of council. David Horner and Judy Casto are requesting permission to vary the setback for a new detached garage. The previous garage was raised Petitioner is proposing to construct a 20 by 20-foot garage in its place. Due to the small size of the lot, the petitioner's request is that the 3-foot setback for an accessory structure be varied 2 feet so that the garage will be only 1 foot from the south and west property lines. The walls of the garage that are abutting the side and rear property lines will be constructed of masonry block to serve as retaining walls and for building code fire separation. The garage would have a gable shingled roof and vinyl siding to match the house. The garage will not be out of character for the neighborhood, nor should it have a negative impact on neighboring properties. The new garage will add value to the property and the surrounding neighborhood. Both Planning Commission and Planning staff recommend approval subject to conditions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Antonucci. Is there anyone in the audience who has been sworn in to speak at this public hearing in favor of it? If you would like to speak in favor of this ordinance. Is there anyone to speak in favor? Okay. Is there anyone to speak against this ordinance? Anyone to speak against? So in the audience, we have no one to speak in favor, and there is no one to speak against this ordinance. So we will close the public hearing period on this ordinance, and I will move now to the chairman of the Planning Committee. What is your recommendation, Councilman Fusco?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to pull the committee for a favorable report with suspension of the rules.
Please do.
Thank you. Mobian? Kamer? Neal? Swirsky? Aye.
Thank you. The committee has a favorable report. They're asking for suspension of the rules. As council as a whole, we will vote on suspension of the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Hearing and seeing none, Councilman Fusco, would you like to elaborate on this particular ordinance?
Yes, thank you. The Planning Department, the Planning Commission all recommended approval. The Ward Council representatives in favor. From what I understand, this is a slight deviation in terms of the sideline for the property, and we believe it's in the city's best interest to move forward and permit this at this time.
Thank you, Councilman Fusco. Having heard what the committee chair has to say, listening to the vote of the suspension of the rules from the committee and all of council, all those in favor of accepting this ordinance signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Hearing and seeing none, roll call and final passage.
Roll call and final passage. Freeman, Fusco, Holt, Kamer, Keith, Kilby, Milkovich, Mosley, Samples, Neal, Mobian, Sims, Somerville, Swirsky.
Okay. So this ordinance does pass. So if there is anyone in the audience now that came just for this particular ordinance, it has passed, and if you would care to leave, you may. Okay. Don't feel you have to, but you can if you want to. Okay, now I will go back to Chairman of Planning, Councilman Fusco. What are the wishes on your committee?
Thank you, President Keith. The wishes of the committee on item number 3 is for the consent agenda.
Okay, item number 3 will be put on the consent agenda.
For the committees for time on 4 and 5.
Time will be granted on 4 and 5 and 6.
6. And the report of the committee is to file item number 7. That's the petition for the garage on Weber we just voted on.
Okay, and file number 7.
Time on the balance.
And time on the balance. Thank you. Public service, Councilman Hoke, what are the wishes of your committee?
The committee requests that we continue to take time, please.
Time will be granted. Public utilities, Councilman Neal, what are the wishes of your committee?
Madam Chair, the committee's request is continued time.
Time will be granted. Okay, yes. We do have a miscellaneous resolution, but as most of you remember from last week, any resolution now that doesn't naturally fall into a committee will be now, from this point on, put into Rules Committee so that it gets the proper attention. So we will read in this particular resolution that was offered a couple weeks ago.
Resolution supporting the passage of the state of Ohio legislation that would create the Ohio Drug Price Relief Act, known as Ohio Issue 2, which will require Ohio and its agencies and programs to purchase prescription drugs at prices no higher than what the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, the VA, pays, and declaring an emergency. And I think it was introduced by Tara Mosley Samples.
Councilwoman Tara Mosley Samples, what are your wishes on this resolution?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a few of my colleagues that have requested one more week so they could do a little more research on the item, so we'll take time until next week.
And time will be granted. I must note that someone put some information in my mailbox about this resolution, so I want to thank you. If you put something in a mailbox, if you could put your initials or your name on it, just in case we have questions of the source or whatever, that's just kind of helpful as we move forward. Okay, that is our regular agenda. And now we are going to go into new legislation. But before we go into new legislation, I want to reiterate 3 things that I said that we would move forward on. And the first one is that all resolutions, as I have noted, would now, if they don't naturally fall into a committee, they would go into the Rules Committee. The second thing that I had noted is that we will get an experienced parliamentarian in here to help guide us through council rules and also Robert's Rules of Order. The third thing that I had mentioned is that we would look at finding someone who could help us have intentional dialogue. This afternoon, we interviewed Bill Lyons from the University of Akron, and from those that were participating, he is willing to take on helping us with conflict management and giving us skills to move forward in our discussions of items that may not always be easy to discuss. So he will be working with us as we move forward. And having said that now, I would like to go to the new legislation. And the first one is in Budget and Finance.
Okay. Item number 1, offered by Somerville, ordinance accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission of Summit County and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them for Summit County fiscal officer and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Margot Somerville, what are the wishes of your committee?
Thank you, Madam President. The committee's request consent agenda.
This will be placed on the consent agenda.
Okay. Item number 2, offered by Somerville, resolution requesting that the Summit County fiscal officer make an advance payment of tax funds for the tax year 2017, payable in 2018, to the City of Akron's Treasury Division and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Councilwoman Somerville, what are the wishes of your committee?
Committee requests the consent agenda.
And this item will be also placed in the consent agenda.
Item number 3, offered by Somerville, ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $20 million in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to retire notes issued for the purpose of providing funds to pay the cost of various improvements in the city and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Councilwoman Somerville, what are the wishes of your committee?
The committee requests consent agenda.
This item will be placed in the consent agenda.
Item number 4, offered by Somerville, ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of notes in the principal amount not exceeding $13,500,000 to pay the property owner's portion in anticipation of a levy and the collection of special assessments of the cost of improving certain streets in the city between certain termini providing street cleaning services and street lighting and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Somerville, what are the wishes of your committee?
The committee requests consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Okay, item number 5, offered by Somerville, ordinance providing for the issuance and sale not to exceed $500,000 in bonds to pay in anticipation of the collection of special assessments heretofore levied. the property owner's portion of the cost improving certain streets in the city and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Somerville, what are the wishes of your committee?
The committee requests consent agenda.
And this item would be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 6, offered by Somerville. Ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of not to exceed $3,300,000 of bonds to pay in anticipation of the collection of special assessments heretofore levied. The property owner's portion of the cost of improving Market Street in the city by paving, grading, constructing, reconstructing, and installing curbs, concrete sidewalks, driveway approaches, and all together with the appurtenances thereto, and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Somerville, what are the wishes of your committee?
The committee requests consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 7, offered by Somerville. Ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of bonds in the maximum principal amount of $4,485,000 for the purpose of refunding certain maturities in the general obligation bonds of the city issued 2010 and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Somerville, the wishes of your committee?
The committee requests consent agenda.
And this item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 8, offered by Somerville. Ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of bonds in the maximum principal amount of $15,160,000 for the purpose of refunding certain maturities of general obligation bonds of the city issued in 2010, declaring emergency.
Councilwoman Somerville, what are the wishes of your committee?
The committee requests consent agenda.
And this item shall be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 9, offered by Somerville. Ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $4 million in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to retire notes issued for the purpose of providing funds to pay expenses associated with the settlement of health care claims, whether by reserve or otherwise, and the city's portion of the cost of maintaining its self-insurance program for employees' health care benefits and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Somerville, what are the wishes of your committee?
The committee requests consent agenda.
And this item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 10, offered by Somerville. Ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of bonds of the city in the maximum principal amount of $191,195,000 for the purpose of refunding bonds issued by the city in 2010 to pay the cost of acquiring, constructing, improving, renovating, repairing, enlarging, adding to, reconstructing, maintaining, equipping, furnishing, acquiring tax interests in the real property in connection with improving the site and otherwise improving community learning centers and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Somerville, what are the wishes of your committee?
The committee requests consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Let's see. Item number 11C.
11.
I'm sorry. Ordinance authorizing issuance and sale of bonds in the maximum principal amount of $23,666,000 for the purpose of refunding certain maturities of income tax revenue bonds of the city issued in 2014 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Councilwoman Somerville, what are the wishes of your committee?
The committee requests consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 12, offered by Somerville. Ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in the maximum principal amount of $500,000 in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay for the cost of improving municipal buildings and facilities in the city by constructing, reconstructing, repairing roofs, remodeling, relocating, making site and other improvements, planning and design facilities, and acquiring and installing related equipment, all applicable designated to the Director of Public Service and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Somerville, what are the wishes of your committee?
The committee requests consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 13, ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of, in the maximum amount of principal of $2,500,000 in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay the cost of acquiring and equipping motor vehicles for the certain divisions of the city and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Councilwoman Somerville, what are the wishes of your committee?
The committee requests consent agenda.
And this item shall be placed on the consent agenda.
Item 14, offered by Somerville, ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $200,000 in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay costs of improving in municipal parking lots, recreational systems in the city, and declaring an emergency.
Municipal parks.
Municipal parks, all
That's
right.
okay. Councilwoman Somerville, what are the wishes of your committee?
The committee requests consent agenda.
This item shall be placed on the consent agenda.
Okay, item number 15, ordinance offered by Somerville, authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in the maximum principal amount of $1,100,000 in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay certain economic development projects in the city and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Somerville, what are the wishes of your committee?
The committee requests consent agenda.
And this item shall be placed on the consent agenda.
Okay, item number 16, ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $5,700,000 in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay the cost of constructing, reconstructing, and otherwise improving certain streets in the city and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Councilwoman Somerville, what are the wishes of your committee?
The committee requests consent agenda.
And this item shall be placed on the consent agenda.
Two more.
I only have one more. 7.
Offered by Somerville, ordinance repealing or replacing the ordinance number 40, 2017, creating, establishing, and recognizing departments, offices, bureaus, divisions, and positions in the classified service of the city of Akron, required only that budgeted funded positions be filled and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Somerville, what are the wishes of your committee?
Thank you, Madam President. The committee requests consent agenda.
And this item shall also be placed on the consent agenda.
Okay, number 18, offered by Fusco, resolution approving and confirming the appointment of the mayor of Melinda Scalfaro and a member of the Board of the Zoning Appeals and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco, what are the wishes of your committee?
Consent agenda?
And this item shall be placed on the consent agenda.
Okay, item number 19, offered by Fusco. Resolution approving and confirming the appointment of Mark Smith, Leanne Hepner, David Hawkins, Jawan Carter, Mark Schweitzer, Charlie Ryder, and Calvin Berry to the Urban Design and Historic Preservation Commission and declare an emergency.
Councilman Fusco, what are the wishes of your committee?
Consent agenda?
This item shall be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 20, requested by the Department of Planning and Urban Development and offered by Fusco. Ordinance number amending Title III, Administration, Chapter 31, Departments, Boards, and Commissions, Section 31.391, Urban Design and Historic Preservation Commission of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Akron and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco, what are the wishes of your committee?
Consent agenda?
This item shall be placed on the consent agenda.
Okay, item 21, offered by Hope, ordinance determining to proceed with the levy of special assessments for the improvement of certain streets in the city between certain termini by providing street cleaning services and street lighting, approving the report of the Assessment Equalization Board and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Hoke, what are the wishes of your committee?
The committee requests this be placed on the consent agenda.
And this item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 22, offered by Kamer. Ordinance, plus Veronica Sims, an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to apply for and accept, if awarded, a grant from the Ohio Bureau of Workmen's Compensation for the Safety Intervention Grant for firefighters exposure to environment elements for equipment, authorizing the fire chief through the purchasing agent to enter into an agreement or agreements to carry out the terms of the grant by purchasing the equipment necessary to carry out the purpose of the grant, authorizing the expenditure of local funds, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer, what are the wishes of your committee?
Thank you, Madam President. Committee's report is consent agenda, please.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda. We will now go to the portion of the meeting that we refer to as the public comment period. If you wish to speak to this council during this time, you are to approach the podium there. You should sign in, first name, last name, and I need your address to be on the paper. However, when you speak, you do not need to use your address because we are live streamed. Then, no, that's okay. You will have 3 minutes to speak to this body. At the end of 3 minutes, a timer will go off. I will bring the gavel down, and your time is up. Speakers are reminded that this is an official meeting. Remarks should be kept respectful and germane to council business. Speakers should refrain from making personal attacks. Anyone who breaches decorum will be ruled out of order and may be removed from council chambers.
Am I first?
Yes, you are up there, so you would be first.
Good afternoon. My name is Sharonda Salmons. I'm a resident of Ward 5. I was outside, so I missed a lot of the things that you guys named out, but the reason that I came to speak before you guys today, you guys have been having in the planning and design phase of RAC 3, which affects the residents of Ward 5. I've been to the meetings you guys are having with the Andecy. I know you guys are having another community outreach meeting on the 14th, but my concerns, I want you guys to hear, and I wrote them on the map, and I've asked several people for answer. No one's given me an answer yet. The way that the plan is now, every resident from 7th Avenue moving, whatever that way that is, up towards Archwood and Triplet, we're totally left out. Where I live is between there, which is adjacent to Joy Park, where the old dump was, and that's a whole nother issue because no one wants to address that, other than you guys keep putting dirt there. But what I need to know is, can you guys reconsider? Let me slow down. I'm here as a resident. However, I have a lot of background information because I own a construction company. And so I understand, and from my point of view, it appears to me that the city of Akron, and as a collective group, took, in my words, a shortcut. And so now you're going to give us 5 or 6 green projects, which is great because we need those. But we really need some type of sanitary sewer waste. I have a neighbor on the left that's 87. I have a neighbor on the right that's in her late 60s. She's had several heart attacks every time it rains. Small rain, large rain, medium rain, my neighbor's basements flood. I don't know if it's anybody else here on the east side. I'm fortunate enough that I've lived there for 17 years, so I have installed a sump pump, so my basement doesn't necessarily flood, but I get the mildew, wetness, and I have a constant dehumidifier down there. So if you guys could please, in respect for the taxpayers there, it's a lot of homeowners, but there's also Joy Park homes. Those people don't own those homes. So you won't hear those people here saying, can you help us because our basement is flooding because they live in apartments. But for the rest of those residents who have lived there generations upon generations upon generations, there's at least 5 churches affected. My church is right there on the corner of Arlington and Faith Out Loud Way. We may not be affected because we're on the right of this said project for RAC 3, but could you guys really go back to the drawing board and figure out a way to include us meaning the other residents, because as it stands in the planning and design phase that you guys have now, there's nothing going to be done. And so I've asked several people, again, not to name drop, but only one person gave me a definitive, no, Sharonda, it's not going to work. And her name is Heather. Heather, not Heather B, the communications. No, she's the this Heather works for the city of Akron. I think her last name starts with the U. However, she was the only person that was bold enough to say, no, this project is not going to stop the flooding for you or your neighbors. So if you guys could just kindly revisit the CSO planning phase.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Ma'am, if you can hear me, if you would like someone to speak to you after the meeting, John Moore, thank you very much. That's okay, you were quick. If you would like to speak to someone after the meeting, John Moore is more than happy to speak with you, okay? So if, wherever you want to go. Mhm.
Teresa Gussie, I'm here to make a complaint and a concern. I went to Kilby's meeting and I got off Route 8 onto Talmadge, and I don't know why the traffic engineer made Talmadge Avenue from North High to Main Street a Diet Street, but it's a mess over there, and the people on Dayton Street can't even get out on the street at rush hour and stuff. And I almost got hit because I was in the center lane to go to the curb going west. And I didn't know that it's down to one lane, and wasn't any signage or anything to warn me or anything. And coming up the gorge to that, where that intersection is by North, I've almost got hit. They do not have a no turn on red, and I get the arrow coming up to turn on Talmadge, and I've almost got hit, and I've laid my horn on, and I've got cussed at and everything. What is going on? I know we have all these detours and stuff, but this is terrible on Talmadge, and something's got to be done, because at Kilby's meeting, they were all complaining. You can talk to him and say how all the neighbors over there was complaining about, I don't even live over there, but it was dangerous, and I thought I could zip around. I go, why isn't people coming on this lane and turning left too? Why are they only having the one side? And you get on the bridge and it goes in because we want to get these bicycles. Well, we need something for the road, for people, and for the students over there to be checked. They put up a sign instead of no turn on red. There, where that is, then they make a right-hand turn, and they put up a student sign, and I've been after them saying, I would like to talk to that traffic engineer. And then they're going off, the people are going, that know over there, they're going down Glenwood, and they're speeding up and down there.
I need you, Teresa, to address the council.
Okay.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all right.
I like them too. Anyways, but please do something about it. I know we like the bicycles, but I don't see the people bicycles riding on there, and I like to ride bicycles too. But that is a bit. I know they did it on Copley and Milbeth, and it's kind of working out, but that is a real mess. You can ask everybody in the audience too that's been over there. It is bad. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm not going to ask you in the audience. I'm just going to know that you heard her, and I'm going to assume that Councilman Kilby has turned those complaints into the traffic engineer since they happened at his ward meeting, but we will also make sure that the service director is aware of those too. Please go right ahead.
Okay. I signed a sheet. It's not the one here, so
Okay.
I'll sign again in a minute. I'm Reverend David Lohr, and I came here originally, signed up to share a resolution from the assembly meeting last Thursday of the Akron chapter of the NAACP. Our president, Judy Hill, is here. Edna Borders, our vice president, is here. But, Madam President, with your announcement, it changes. In fact, our resolution was encouraging the action that you reported of meeting with Mr. Lyons and the conflict resolution. And so I'm here now to say amen. Last week I saw Mr. Fusco encouraged himself and everybody to up their game. As a pastor for 42 years, I've worked with couples who are in disintegrating marriages, as well as served a number of churches that, can you believe it, churches have fights. And everybody's well-intentioned. The question is not people's intentions, but we all need training and skills. And I think the outreach that you have announced is what's needed. I have no question about the intentions of anybody around these tables to work for the goodwill. But how do we listen with what I have learned is the third ear to feelings? How do we pay attention and say back to each other what's being said before we try to make our own points? I hope you all as a council will work very intently with this. I will say it's something I brought up 2 years ago when I did interview for the council at large position and when Mr. Fusco became president and mayor. And I'm glad to see that action is being taken. I think at this critical point in the history of our city, what you all can show all of us, which clearly was evident even in our initial hearing tonight, is how do we listen to one another and interact and deal with conflict. So thank you.
Thank you. Reverend Moore.
Good evening. My name is Pastor Lynette Jenkins, and I just want to speak a little bit on the past couple of meetings that have been going on behalf of women and the power of words. No good is ever gained by remaining silent on issues which impact our lives. Words have power to build or destroy. I am here tonight to address council, specifically the council person who directed such reprehensible words of sit down and shut up to fellow councilwomen. These words were wrong and divisive at a time when unity of purpose is needed to solve the monumental problems that exist on council and throughout our city. Admittedly, we're all frail human beings. Every one of us at some point or time has made mistakes. There is nothing wrong in being wrong, but there is something wrong in not doing anything about it. The true test of character is demonstrated in word and deed. Our words ought to be like the honey we eat, both sweet and healing. The words spoken by council person were absolutely inappropriate and are a call for all of us, women especially, to open our eyes to the injustices around us. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stated, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." There is a defining moment because any woman in this room, especially African American women, could have easily been Veronica Sims or Linda Omobian, even Tara Mosley Samples. There are more difficult days ahead, but don't lose sight that you are elected leaders who provide direction for our beloved city. All of us are equal, and we each bring a different kind of richness to the table. That richness has value, too. Councilwoman Sims, Omobian, Mosley Samples have demonstrated that they embody the courage and hope that together with their colleagues, they can leave City Council and City of Akron better than before. Their voices matter now and for future generations because they've anchored in a basically philosophy that cares about people and believes that they have a responsibility to the least of these. With grit and gratitude, they continue to act on the belief that whose they are, transformative leaders of excellence at the city, state, and national levels. Madam President, though offenses may come, as the Bible states, I am motivated by a sense of fairness. Fairness in this situation calls for censorship, and I'm excited to hear that you guys are working toward that. A public reprimand and a public apology to the council.
The time is up.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Pastor Jenkins.
Thank you, Madam President.
Before you get started, sir, if you could just back away from that mic a little bit, not that far, but just about that much, it comes out more. We've been having trouble with the sound system.
I'll be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Madam President, Councilpersons Roderick Pounds, pastor, Second Baptist Church, probably responsible for the amassment of ministers that have congregated, being the head of our ministerial alliance. Just want to, again, to express publicly, as I did also privately with Councilman Hoke. It was me who called just to reassure you of my wholehearted acceptance of your apology. All a man can do is apologize, and it's not my prerogative to critique or analyze your sincerity. That's your responsibility. And so on behalf of, of our alliance, I wanted, if I can publicly come and express my concern, I can also publicly come and express my forgiveness. You have apologized. That's all that a man can do, is apologize. And on behalf of our alliance and our ministerial alliance, we accept that apology. That's why I extended that call to you. However, we also know that apologies do not eradicate consequences. And we were somewhat disheartened that the only effort at a consequence was voted down. But we heard, I believe, from you, Madam President, that there will be some effort to make sure that there are fair and equitable consequences. And I would only hope that Councilman Hoke, who was man enough to apologize, and would also be man enough to accept the consequences. That's life, and that's integrity. And so again, thank you for the opportunity to come and express our concern, and I wish you well.
Thank you, Reverend.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Nicolette Poe, and I'm here to talk about, I just want to actually thank the city councilmen, particularly Councilman Somerville, in regards to work that we talked about prior to the break in regards to the road repairs. I just want to say thank you. I can see that they've been done, a lot of roads in our area, so I just want to say thank you, because I know that you all have well intentions and you strive to serve the residents of Akron, so I want to say thank you for your work. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Poe.
Madam President, members of the council, my name is John Beatty, B-E-A-T-Y. I was shocked, as well as most of the folks here who were here 2 weeks ago, by the harsh words said by one councilman to some of our African American women council people. But I want to say that this councilman's attitude toward African Americans and women perfectly matches the attitudes of many of his constituents. There's something deeper going on here than just conflict resolution among the members of the council. We're dealing with systemic system of racism. As I said last week, we're all racists. Every one of us. Even those of us who are African Americans, and it comes out as black on black crime. It's internalized racism when we don't feel that our brothers and sisters are worth life, when they're only worth maybe a pair of tennis shoes. So we're all racists here. Hillary Clinton ran on Barack Obama's legacy, the first African-American president. Donald Trump pledged in his campaign, and is carrying it out, to reverse all the progress for women and minorities under Obama's administration. Ward 6 was the only ward in Akron that went to Donald J. Trump. 4,064 for Trump, 3,807 for Clinton. Almost twice as many voters in Ward 8, 7,406, voted for Clinton than the voters in Ward 6, 3,807. The two wards with the highest votes for Trump were Ward 6, 4,064. And unfortunately, the wealthiest Ward 8, 3,862 for Trump. This says to me that this is not just a class issue, but it is a race issue that goes to the depths of our troubled city, in which the minority wards with the most minorities see a suction going to the wealthiest wards, Ward 6 and Ward 8. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam President. My name is Jacqueline Shealy, and I would like to address the council on the topic of the way in which a few of our young women of council were addressed in a few meetings that I had the opportunity to observe. And I have to say that as a woman that is a multiracial woman, my entire life I have had to tolerate racism in many forms. Personal, publicly, from Europeans and African Americans alike. And one thing that I've learned is that all people just want to be treated as people. And it doesn't matter whether you're woman, it doesn't matter whether you're male, black, white, Latino, whatever it is. You just want to have a voice and you want to be heard. But more importantly, you want to know that people respect you and that people will stand up for wrong when it is carried out. And as a member of, working at Goodyear for 15 years, coming here from Buffalo, New York, the city of good neighbors, I've sensed this in the city of Akron, and I implore this council to use this as an opportunity to correct a wrong, to correct an issue, to make a stand, not only for just our city, but for all the corporations, for all the cities who are really watching what is happening here today. This council and you have an opportunity to turn this negative situation into a positive one, to let people know that this type of racism, that this type of communication is not to be tolerated or accepted by anyone to anyone. And I would just like to ask that you really think about this, the entire council, when you're deliberating on whether any sanctions will be carried out. I agree that people make mistakes, and I'm feeling very positive at what you stated at the onset of this meeting. Not only do you need conflict management in terms of how to deal with issues when they arise and tempers rise, but you also need to know how to have common decency in speaking with one another, and that goes a long way. If you can just understand what someone else is saying or where they might be coming from, but just give them a voice. That's what you're here to be, our voice. And I would just ask once again that you really honestly think about the way you're communicating with one another and come together for unity, because it doesn't matter what your race, it doesn't matter what your social status, and it's time for us to make a change. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President and City Council members, my name is Lorenzo Glenn. I am the pastor of the Macedonia Baptist Church on the east side of Akron, and I'm here again to address what is clearly the calamity of what happened here in the council meeting. I'm convinced that some fights are not worth fighting, even when you can win the fight, simply because you'll forfeit some good times. You won't make it to work. You won't make it to the volleyball game of a child. And after you look over the backdrop of the time you lost, you gave up a whole lot just to say you hold a title. while other fights, you have to fight, even though it seems like you will probably lose the fight because of being outnumbered. Now, I struggled last week because it seemed to me that Mr. Hoke did not apologize until we all showed up. And I'm really asking, would he have apologized, or would you have apologized if we didn't? It seemed that it took this group, and again, I appreciate that you did. I'm not trying to scrutinize if you were sincere or not as well, but I just wonder, when you had 7 days to do what you did when we showed up, why couldn't you do it in those 7 days? And then we came, and then all of a sudden, you see the error of your way and you apologize. All I'm simply saying today is that this is a fight we have to fight. We cannot sit around when the Jews look at the Holocaust and say, never again. We have the same mindset. We have the same mindset this new administration here that we're dealing with in Washington dug up and dusted off the Ku Klux Klan. We haven't seen them in years. And Trayvon Martin, he was profiled because he wore a hoodie. Last I looked, that's what they started with, hoodies. And all I'm simply saying is we need, by far, to come together simply because this is a fight we have to fight. And we won't tolerate the injustice. We all should respect all women. But it was terrible to hear what was shared by these women. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Is there anyone else to share a public comment period?
My name is Carl Buck. I've spoken before you before. Madam President, members of the council. I was here 2 weeks ago when we had many young people here to observe how council works, and that is a great thing. However, decorum broke down and the meeting became loud and disrespectful. I was embarrassed for Akron and these young people. Then last week, there were many people demanding apologies for this behavior, and rightfully so. However, again, we missed an opportunity. The behavior of the council that night was irresponsible. And I'm not just talking about Mr. Hoke, I'm talking about the entire council. Apologies should have been given by every one of the council members who did not respect procedure. We had a lot of council members standing up and yelling out of order. We had the president of council trying to bring order. What should have been was the sergeant of arms should have been brought in and asked everybody to either behave or leave. But instead, shouting and loud speaking is the way we do things now, so we can shut the other person up. And it's sad. So we miss a chance as a council and a group of citizens of Akron to show young people how procedures work, but instead we yelled and we shouted at each other. As a citizen of Akron, I would like an apology from all those who were out of control. Akron residents deserve better. Also, and this is on another subject, I see the signs already for issue 4. Keep Akron safe. The sign forgot to tell the citizens of Akron how certain members of council are really going to spend their money. Members of this council reported this at the council meeting right before summer break. If this money is really needed, the above-mentioned council members wouldn't be spending this money before the issue is even voted on by the citizens of Akron. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else?
Hi, I'm signed in. I'm Teresa Shimp. And I just want to say that lots of times I feel like a victim of racism because I've been called whitey, I've been called a racist. You know, I've been blamed for slavery, and that's something that happened 150 years ago. I've been blamed for being a European, and I've been American all my life. And I think what it is that, you know, in our Constitution, we've been told that our government is not supposed to respect religion. And I think what the Constitution was trying to say is that the government can't respect one religion over another religion. But you know, God isn't religion. God is our Maker, our Almighty Father. And we don't give our Father enough respect. And if we don't respect God, and if we don't recognize that there is a God by our government, then we can't be expected to respect each other. Whether we're black or white or Muslim or Oriental, we can't have respect because we're not respecting the person that made us. And I would just like for when our children come up to you and they say, is there really a God? I don't want you to be afraid as government to say, yes, there's a God. You know, when you go home, ask your parents about it. You know, and then everybody will go home, and whatever religion we are, we'll stick up for God in our own way. But we have to recognize in this country that there is a God and give him his due. And then maybe that black people will respect white people and white people will respect black people, because we are dying as a country. We are divided, and we need, you know, together we stand, and divided we fall. And we are falling, people. So I just hope that people will, and the government will start recognizing there's a God, and so people will pray about the situation that we're in. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm Minister Sara Watkins, and I stood here about 8 or 9 years ago before council because I had my rights taken away, had my voice silenced, and I spoke before council, which they never got back with me with the answer. But there was a council person came to me, Mike Williams, he was here at the time, and he apologized to me. Not for anything that he had done, but because of what I went through. And that allowed the hurt to start going away. It allowed the tears to flow and for me to start healing. So today I'll stand here, Linda Mobian, Mr. Russell, Councilman Sims, and to the rest of the councilmen, I say to you, I apologize to you. I appreciate the things that you do, the way that you fight, that your heart is in it. And what I would say to everyone, God is yet on the throne. So we need to take this moment, start healing. We got our little cliques, we need to stop. That's the only way that we're going to heal. But in the midst of it all, I love you. Amen. To everyone, keep going. This is a new day. And in this day, God said, hey, the first shall be last, the last shall be first. So it's time for us to stand and to move on. Amen.
Thank you. Ms. Watkins. Is there anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public comment period. We will now go to the portion of our meeting that we set our schedule for next week. Rules. 2:30, I heard. Budget and Finance. Planning. Public Service. Public Utilities. Public Safety. Parks and Rec. Housing. Health and Social Services. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
What was it?
2:30. Economic Development. Green Committee. Did you say one? Okay, thank you. Is there anything else to come before council for the good of council? Councilwoman Somerville.
Thank you so much, Madam President. I know many of them have left, but I just wanted to acknowledge the beautiful ladies wearing the pink and green in the audience, my sorority sisters, Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, ZTO chapter. Please stand. Just want to acknowledge you and thank you for coming down, and thank you for what you do in this community to make the city of Akron a better place. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilwoman Somerville. Is there anyone else? Is there a motion? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you.
This concludes the live broadcast of Akron City Council. Marilyn Keith, President of Council, presiding. Something's wrong. Something's wrong.